Okay, let's hope.
Welcome, teachers, to our webinar on teaching fractions with eSingapore Math. I'm so glad you joined us today. We'll be getting started in just a few moments. Looks like some of our colleagues are still joining us. In the meantime, I'd love to get to know you just a little bit, if that's possible. I'm opening the chat up, and if you would like to introduce yourself, I'd love to find out what you teach and where you're from. So if you're so inclined, please send me a little note in the chat. There we go. We'll be getting started in just a few moments. Before we get started, I just want you to know that if you have a question during my presentation, I'm more than happy to address it. You are welcome to send me a message in the chat, or if you want, you can just interrupt me. I am happy to address your questions. My name is Kathleen Wallace. I'm a senior math consultant for East West Math, and I'm happy that you're here today so we can all talk about one of our favorite topics in K-6 math education, fractions. We have just a few more of our colleagues joining us, so we'll get started in just a couple of minutes, but I'm glad to see so many of you here today. I would love to hear from you in the chat to know what you teach, where you're from, anything else. If you had a question before we started, please feel free. Okay, we're just about ready to start. Again, if you've just joined us, I'm happy to entertain any questions you might have in the chat during my presentation. I'd also love, oh, thank you. Abby's here from Roanoke, Virginia, 5th grade math and science. You are in the heat of the battle with 5th grade fractions. Things really get serious and complicated in 5th grade. I'm glad you're with us, Abby. Just a couple more minutes and we'll get started, but thank you for introducing yourself. If anyone else wants to let me know, I love to know what grades you teach and what part of the world you come from. Hello, Carlos. Aha, math teacher from grade 1 to grade 4. You've got a very important job. I'm wondering where you are, what international school, Tessa International School, where that is. But I'm glad you're here, Carlos. Thank you for that. Hoboken, New Jersey. I've been there many times. I'm originally from New Jersey, so that's terrific. Hoboken, New Jersey. Here we go. Just a couple more of our colleagues are joining us, and we will get started. There we go. I think I might need to stop from time to time and let people in, but I'm so glad to see all you teachers here on your off time, learning more about a very important topic for your students. I'll push this over. So, mastering fractions. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Singapore Math Way, it's all of the high-performing Asian countries teach using Singapore math, and I have taught with it for many years, and I can't recommend it enough. So let's find out just a little bit about how we do that. So you might agree, and I'd love to know in the chat if you do agree, but it's generally agreed that fractions are the most challenging topic in K-5 mathematics for so many, many reasons. So why is this? The first issue is that the fraction concepts must be carefully developed. We generally begin in grade 3s. There's a little bit of fractions in grades 2 and 1. We talk about equal shares, and we talk about half of a sandwich and that kind of thing. But when we get into grade 3, things start to get very serious, and we start out learning the basics of fractions. This might be the key to our whole reason for doing this, and that is that fraction understanding is the gateway to success in algebra. Not only do we need to understand that the fraction notation takes on many meanings, and of course in algebra it indicates division, but also the concept of the relationship between the parts and the whole, and always referring back to that whole. There's so many subtle understandings that students need to gain about fractions before they get to studying algebra. Oops. I can't stress this enough, that we cannot teach procedures. In other words, flip a fraction and multiply, or multiply the top and the bottom by the same number. When teaching fractions, it's critically important that we teach children to understand. We have to work towards understanding. And we have a very specific method for doing this in Singapore math. For those of you who know a little bit about Singapore math, our primary, one of the cornerstones of Singapore math is, of course, CPA, the concrete pictorial abstract approach. All new material is presented in a concrete fashion using manipulatives and tools that the children can work on. We start out by working with concrete objects to establish a foundation for understanding all of the math we teach, but in particular with fractions. So we want to give the students as much time as possible with these manipulatives, and with fractions, paper works really well. Plastic cubes work really well. We need to make sure that we allow plenty of time for the students to work with these so that they can internalize the understanding of fractional notation. That is one very difficult piece when teaching fractions. The students need to understand deeply the idea of equal parts, and then something that's extremely abstract is that they need to know that we're referring back to the same size whole, or which whole are we in fact referring to. And as I said, paper models work wonderfully well for this. After the students have had all that time to work with the concrete, we move on to the pictorial. The pictorial is one step up in abstraction. No longer can the child manipulate with their hands. They need to manipulate these pictures of the concrete models in their mind. These pictorial models are used to deepen their understanding. And again, it's another long phase of working with pictures that represent fractional models. Lastly, and only when they're ready, we move the children on to the abstract symbolic work. When students are working with the fractions and they're comfortable, then they can start looking at the highly abstract notation. I would like to share a video from Singapore Math describing the way that we teach our students fractions. And this is an illustration of a word problem.
Mrs. Williams fills one bucket with 1/4 gallon of water. How many similar buckets can she fill with 6 gallons of water? We divide to solve this problem. 6 divided by 1/4. Let's use models to help us. To show fourths, we divide each whole into 4 parts. Each part represents 1/4 gallon of water. We see that one whole is made up of 4/4. This means that the number of 1/4 gallons in one gallon is 4. Therefore, the number of 1/4 gallons in 6 gallons is equal to 6 multiplied by 4. We can see that 6 divided by 1/4 is equal to 6 multiplied by 4.
I chose this one on purpose. I think it's a really good illustration of teaching conceptually rather than procedurally. So many times, all the depth that the students would get would be that 6 divided by 1/4 is the same as 6 times 4, or they just tell them to flip the fraction and then multiply. But that robs the children of getting this deep understanding of what's really happening. Why is it that when you divide by a fraction, the number is higher as opposed to when we were dividing by whole numbers? So this is, we focus on the understanding, and we do that with the use of models. So we start in grade 3 with the fundamentals. We learn the concept of equal parts. These are all pictures taken from the East Singapore Math grade 3 fraction unit. We learn the nomenclature, the numerator and the denominator. And so important when we're teaching fractions, teachers, we really have to make use of that number line. The 2 most commonly found models in Singapore Math, and of course in our East Singapore Math program, are the bar model, this one right here, and then of course the number line. So in 3rd grade, they do actually quite a bit of very important work. 3rd graders compare fractions. 3rd graders, and they also recognize equivalent fractions. That's an extremely difficult concept to see, that fractions that have the same denominator can be equal, can represent an equal part of the whole. So again, we work through that with models. And also when we're comparing fractions, the model helps the children who are not ready to do the algorithm quite yet. They can see, it's very clear that 1/2 is greater than 1/3 is greater than 1/4. Once we get on this, we start out with lesson videos for all of the concepts. And once we're done with that, we move on to meaningful fractions. And here's an example of some problems that the students would work on independently after they had completed the videos. Grade 4, things get ramped up just a little bit. We're going to compare unlike fractions. And I used this example on the left here, the orange one, to show how, yes, oftentimes we show, I call this the algorithm, the fraction algorithm. I also have it over here, where we multiply or divide the top and the bottom by the same number. And that's fine. However, until the students have a deep understanding of what's actually happening, I don't know that they always internalize the fact that 8/12 is equivalent to 4/6. We're going to compare those unlike fractions, both with the pictorial, with the number line, then with the algorithm. We're going to find equivalent fractions using that multiplication and division, and then we can go on to add and subtract, unlike fractions. So this is the first time that we are performing operations with fractions. Here's another example of one of the lessons from Singapore Math.
Carol ate 1/3 of a tortilla. Alfredo ate 1/2 of another tortilla of the same size. Elton ate 3/4 of another equal-sized tortilla. All the tortillas are the same size. Carol ate less of her tortilla than Alfredo. We say that 1/3 is less than 1/2. We write it this way. Elton ate more of his tortilla than Alfredo. We say that 3/4 is greater than 1/2. We write it this way. We can only compare fractions from the same whole or equal-sized wholes.
And again, good job when we're done. I don't know if you noticed, but when the narrator is talking about one particular model, the model is highlighted, so the students know exactly what the explanation is about. And now here we are in 5th grade, where things do indeed get quite sophisticated. We're going to do multiplication and division of fractions and whole numbers. We're going to learn area with a fractional side length. And I've noticed that some of the textbooks will have students dividing a fraction by a fraction in 5th grade. But again, all of this material is presented and practiced with visual models so that the students can gain a deep understanding of the work that they're doing. Here's another example from the 5th grade.
Mr. Harris has 8/9 yards of rope. He cuts it into 4 equal pieces. What is the length of each piece of rope? We divide to solve this problem. 8/9 divided by 4. Let's use a model to help us divide. To divide 8/9 by 4, we divide these 8 parts by 4. So we see that 8/9 divided by 4 is equal to 2/9. Therefore, each piece of rope is 2/9 yards long.
And again, the model...
We can also find the answer without using models. 8/9 divided by 4 is equal to 8/9 multiplied by 1/4. Divide 8 and 4 by the common factor, 4, then multiply the fractions. We get 2/9.
What I appreciate about this approach is that we have the model for the students who need the visual, and then the students who are able to extrapolate and see, after we've done a lot of these problems, many of our students will pick up on the pattern that we flip the fraction and multiply, we invert the fraction. So the students who are still working towards the concrete pictorial side have that picture for their support, and the students who are ready to go ahead can do so without us holding them back. So we know that children love to play games, and Singapore Math is chock full of games. Almost every unit throughout the entire curriculum has some kind of game. And we have this terrific game called the bar model scale. I really like it. What I like about this the most is the way that the game represents the values, the quantities in the in each question. It represents it with a bar model. So in addition to just the abstract number, the students can clearly see. You can see here that this one on the whole on the one on the right side is going to, it equals the 2 parts on the left side. And let's see how we solve this problem. So here's a fun game for our grades 3 and 4. And as you can see, it really reinforces the concept of equal parts. And it also is another iteration of seeing the bar model, which is very important in our work. And here's another fun one. This is for grade 5, where we get into decimal fractions, a little bit of soccer, math soccer. So there we go. We have a new aspect to our eSingapore math program, and we call this our Digit Droid. As if you've seen a lot of the, if you've seen the way that a lot of these games work, there's a reward system, and we have that too in eSingapore math. So here's a quick preview of our Digit Droid.
You'll get coins after passing the lessons. You can buy energy for me with your coins. I can make gems using my energy. You can buy the tickets and use them to ask me for help while practicing. Great! Now I have more energy.
So as you can see, the students get points for completing practice and watching the instructional videos. They get points and coins, and then with those coins, they can buy gems. They can also customize their avatar, make their own Digit Droid to look the way they want it to. And it's quite an incentive for the youngsters to work more with the program. Our program features adaptive learning. So each student is given a diagnostic assessment, and upon the results of that, they're given a unique learning path from all of the variety of resources on eSingapore Math. Every topic has video tutorials, step-by-step explanations, both assisted practice and benchmark practice. And as I showed you, we have gamified practice, and this is all goal-driven learning. This is a picture of the screen where the children check in when they enter and leave the program to see about their progress and what they've completed and what prizes they have gotten. Just want to emphasize that eSingapore Math is based in the proven CPA strategy. It's adaptive learning, it's personalized and mastery-based. The students learn to each topic to mastery. and there is targeted practice with exercises as well as games. We are fully aligned with the well-known Singapore math textbooks, Math in Focus, Engage or Eureka, Dimensions, Primary, and the Common Core version of Primary. So I'm going to open up to questions, and I'm happy to help you with anything, any topic. And I also want to let you know that we're so happy you joined us today. If you would contact me, there's my email. We would like to get you started with a 30-day free trial so that you can have a close-up look with Singapore Math, with eSingapore Math, to see exactly what we have. So I am going to open up. I see the chat. I am happy to answer any questions that you might have. I also want to thank you for joining us today. It's so heartening to see so many teachers using their own time to find out more about their teaching, and in particular, their mathematics teaching. It's great to have you here. So please let me know if you have any questions. If you don't, and you're going to leave us, I would just want to thank you for joining us today. But I am happy to answer any questions that you might have about eSingapore Math or Singapore Math in general, or about fractions instruction. I'm looking to see if I have any, if there are any questions. If you would like to unmute yourself, please feel free to do that and ask me a question on your computer microphone. That would be perfectly fine as well. If you don't have a question and you're moving on to your next activity for the day, I hope you have a lovely day, and I want to thank you for joining us today. I'm happy to answer any questions. I also look forward to getting an email from you and being able to offer our 30-day free trial with eSingapore Math. And thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Kathleen.
Hi there.
How much does it cost per month?
You know, it really varies depending on how many subscriptions and all that kind of thing, but we'd be more than happy to give you that information. If you want to send me an email, we
Okay.
can, I'm happy to look at your situation and we can figure out exactly what that would be.
Sounds good.
I'll look forward
Thank
to
you.
hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.